My godfather introduced me to hunting a long time ago when I was small. Went out with him and my cousin on a coon hunt, but didn't really get into it till a little bit later in my life when I had some friends that had purchased some property and were looking to harvest some deer from their property to put on the table. They were interested in doing some sustainable living and living from the land. So I sat in on the first hunt and spotted one of the first deer that morning and didn't have a gun with me. I was itching to take that deer, and ever since then I've become a regular participant and been there for each of the deer seasons, almost every one of them, looking to put meat on their table and ours.
12 years now since I've shot a buck opening morning. So I mean, I'm excited. It's meat in the freezer, and it helps with the meat bill.
It's still exciting. I still, can't sleep the night before gun deer season and get excited about it. It's good. I love it.
These are some successful hunters from the 2012 Wisconsin firearms deer season. They sure are proud of their accomplishments, and they're happy to be part of our great hunting tradition. No doubt many of you could tell similar stories from your past hunts, and we'll tell you how you can share photos and video of your hunt later in the show. But right now, I'll bet you're looking forward to this year's gun deer season, which is just around the corner. Hi, I'm Dan Small. I'm here in the clubhouse at Milford Hills Hunt Club. Welcome to Deer Hunt Wisconsin 2013. This is our 22nd annual special designed to provide you with the latest information on deer hunting in the Badger State as you prepare for this year's hunt. Our goal in this program is to help make your deer hunting experience more enjoyable and, we hope, more successful. If you're a seasoned hunter, you'll find some tips to help you fine-tune your hunting skills and stories of successful hunts that will bring back memories. And if you're just getting started in hunting, we've got the advice you'll need to feel more confident as you take to the woods on your very first deer hunt. Here in Wisconsin, deer hunting is not just a tradition, it's a way of life. So join us as we prepare for another great hunting season. In the next hour, we'll look at efforts to recruit new hunters to the sport and hear from new hunters and some hunters who've been at it for a long time. We'll have an update on the Deer Trustee Report prepared by Dr. James Kroll and his team of expert deer biologists, and we'll learn what changes the report might bring to deer hunting and deer management. We'll see how sound forestry practices can improve habitat for deer and other wildlife and help maintain a balanced ecosystem and a healthy deer herd. We'll bring you up to date on research on fawn and adult buck mortality that's been going on for the past several years. And as always, we'll ask the state's big game ecologists to give us a forecast for this year's hunt. Throughout the program, you'll see the phone number for the DNR call center on your screen. You can call this number 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and ask a staff person any question you might have about deer hunting. During those same hours, you can also get your questions answered in an online chat or email. And if you have a cell phone, you can even call or email the call center from the field. And new this year, there's a brand new mobile app that'll be ready for gun deer season. We'll tell you more about that at the end of the show.
Very nice shot. Good shot.
So put the chamber flag back in, and we'll go check our targets.
All right.
Hi, Keith.
Well, hi, Dan.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Looks like you're working with a new shooter.
Yeah, this is Kelly Maynard. She's been hunting for about 2 years now.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks. Well, hunting only 2 years now. What got you into hunting?
Well, it's really important to me to know where my food comes from. And in Wisconsin, I work in sustainable agriculture. When I was in the Peace Corps in Paraguay, I had the opportunity to kill some livestock with my family there. And now that I live in Wisconsin, the easiest way for me to know about where my meat comes from is to shoot it myself.
All right. And have you had any success?
Not yet, but I'm hopeful.
Well, good luck this season.
Thank you.
Well, Keith, it looks like Kelly's off to a good start, but how are we doing recruiting hunters in general?
We're doing okay. We did have a good improvement last year. We gained some hunters over previous years. One thing we do know too is that it takes a hunter to make a hunter. So if you know somebody as a hunter who you could invite along to go hunting, or if you have a spouse or a partner who's interested in hunting, The important thing to do is give the ask, make the invite.
How many new hunters did we have last season?
There were about 40,000 first-time buyer's licenses sold last year. And if you've never bought a deer hunting license before, the first one you buy is going to be $5. And one thing you can do as a hunter is if you recruit 3 people to buy one of those licenses this year, you can get your license next year at half price.
What if an adult hasn't taken hunter ed and still wants to hunt this year? Is there time to get certified?
Yeah, if you're over 18 years old, you can take an adult test out at one of the DNR service centers around the state. These will be offered between now and deer hunting. So if you need to get tested out, look at our website, get yourself signed up for an adult test out course.
All right, sounds good.
Well, on the 2012 youth hunt up in west central Wisconsin, and of course, probably about a week and a half, I broke my arm during football practice to make it even more challenging in the hunt. 7 does come out. She was one of them. And this one was standing broadside, 65 yards. I shot her. I was so excited I didn't even feel any pain in my arm, so I just kind of brought my arm up there, not even thinking about my broken arm. So it was a good hunt, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, son. Good job.
Now, Nolan, I understand you got a deer last year, right? Was that your first deer?
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Well, the first day I had an opportunity to get a doe early in the morning, but a coyote came down the hill and scared him away. I had to wait all day, and then the next day, right before we were about to leave, 2 bucks came running across the field, and I got one of them.
Was it running or did it stop?
No, it stopped.
Yeah? Great. And how did you feel after you made that shot?
I felt really good because I was waiting so long, and I finally got my first deer.
No kidding. And this year, Brooklyn shot her first deer.
Mm-hmm.
Now tell us how old you are first.
I'm 10.
So this was your first opportunity in the mentored hunt, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your hunt.
The first day we didn't see any, and we went in that night, and we saw a buck, but I shot at that and I missed it. But then we got into our tree stand, and I shot at a doe, and I got it, and it was and when we found it the next morning because we couldn't find it, and then we realized it was a numbered buck.
Okay, so it was a buck fawn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nolan, I understand you had a hand in helping your sister get her deer this year.
Well, I had it about 75 yards away from me. It was right in the woods right between us, so I decided to get out and kick it right up to her, and I ran right underneath her stand, so I was waiting for something bigger, but then I also realized it was my sister's first hunt, and I really wanted her to get her first deer.
Well, Tim, how do you feel about your kids? You've heard them talk about hunting, and I'm sure you've heard these stories and more at home.
You get excited when you shoot your own deer. You love to be out there hunting and you enjoy the outdoors, but there's absolutely nothing like being with a young kid who shoots their first. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to be in the stand for each one of my 3 kids to shoot their first deer, and actually my nephew as well. And I've never been more excited hunting on my own than I have been in those opportunities.
Now, Mason, this is a magnificent buck. Congratulations on this. Now, this was during the youth hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that hunt went down.
It was really exciting when we first saw him, because at first we saw this 4-pointer come out, and we were just about to get a shot at it. Well, then 2 does came running out and chased him away, and then 5 minutes later, 2 smaller bucks came out, and then I was aiming at the one closest to it, and then I saw a bigger one. Then I told Todd, so we both looked over, and it was twice as big as the other 2 of them that were out there. So I hurry up, moved the gun slowly over to him. We stared at it for about 5 minutes, just staring at us. Then right when it turned, Todd told me to shoot, and then we knew he'd hit it. He had ran into the woods, and we ended up going and finding him.
Wow. And how long a shot did you have?
About 158 yards.
About 158. Looks like somebody paced it off. Huh? And you made one clean shot?
Yep. It
Wow.
got the lungs.
Well, good for you. Now, Todd, you were in the stand with him.
Yes.
And this is a deer you've seen before, right? This deer, let's let the viewers see these drop tines. This is a double drop tine, which is really unusual. But tell us about your history with this deer.
Well, it's a property that I've done some bow hunting on for the last few years. And 2 years ago, on one of my trail cameras, I had it set on video mode, and he had walked right in front of the trail camera. And 2 years ago, he was just about as big as he is now, if not a little bigger, and he had the 3 drop tines on the one side. And he walked through. I left that stand that morning at 11:30, went back at 2 o'clock, and he walked through at about 12:41.
Wow.
And later on in the muzzleloader season, I had gotten another video of him, and it was a really good video. He stood and posed for the camera really well. So, but I never did see the deer in the field to get the opportunity to get a shot.
Well, now, how do you feel about Mason taking this deer? You knew this deer for a couple of years. You hoped he was still around.
I don't know if I could have ever gotten more joy out of me shooting this deer than what he got out of it, and seeing him shoot this deer, because it's just incredible to be able to, let alone see a deer like this, but have an opportunity to shoot it. And I couldn't be happier. I've been telling friends, I could have shot this deer and I'd get high fives, nice buck, exchange some photos and everything, but it's just so much more special that he's got it now. And I'm more proud of it now than if I would have shot it.
Most gun accidents are self-inflicted or caused by members of the victim's hunting party. You can remember the 4 basic rules of firearms safety with the letters tab K. Treat every gun as if it's loaded. Always point the muzzle in a safe direction. Be certain of your target and what's beyond it, and keep your finger outside the trigger guard until ready to fire. Keep these in mind, and you should have a safe hunt. Those young hunters we met were all able to recover their deer, but that doesn't always happen. Jeremy Moore is with dogbonehunter.com. Now, Jeremy's a dog trainer, and he trains what he calls deer dogs. Now, we can't hunt deer with dogs in Wisconsin,
Right.
So what do you mean by deer dog?
Right, when we're talking deer dogs, what we're doing is we're using traditional retrievers, and not necessarily all retrievers, but sporting dog breeds. We're using them to help us out with our whitetail hunting. We use them for shed hunting in the spring, and we'll use them in the fall for what we call game recovery.
Now, what kind of dogs are these? They look like labs.
They're English labs or British labs, a little bit smaller dog, but it's my personal preference. I like their temperament, their disposition, and the natural traits that they have really are conducive to what we're doing with them, retrieving shed antlers, tracking deer. I know guys who do this with shepherds, beagles, spaniels, pointing dogs, certainly don't have to have labs. The thing about labs is, again, it's preference. It's my personal preference. It fits my training style. What we do is we go about it and we try to simplify it. Let's not overcomplicate the process. I think a lot of guys are intimidated by the idea of it's so many steps involved. When you start talking game recovery especially, a lot of that is natural hunt in that dog. It's conditioning, scent discrimination. What does it smell like that's going to get them the reward? So that's how we build that in our training process. We introduce them to things early on, but then we're going to get them into the field towards the later part of training. That's the experience, and they're going to pick that up really, really quickly.
Now, you had a successful hunt with your son just a couple weeks ago during the youth hunt,
Yeah,
right?
we did. Yeah, Mason was able to shoot, he's 11 years old, he was able to shoot actually a second buck. And we've got a pup here, this Simmer, is actually, we put her on that track. It was her first recovery. Great example of an opportunity where it was a gun hunt. So what we had was we had a real simple track. It was about a 40-yard track, and the deer expired right away. Those are great opportunities to take young dogs out on their first tracks because we guarantee success. I know we're going to find that deer. It builds confidence in the dog, and it also builds confidence in me as a handler.
Now, what's the law in Wisconsin?
Wisconsin is a leashed tracking state, which means you got to have the dog on a leash and you have to have them in control at all times. It eliminates the risk of and the argument of, well, you're going to use those dogs to hunt. That's not what we're doing. We're recovering game, and that's just finding wounded animals. I think that right now there's 27 states that have some form of legal tracking, whether it be leashed or off leash.
Well, Jeremy, can you carry a firearm when you're tracking?
Not in Wisconsin, and again, it's different states have different rules. In Wisconsin, while you're on the track recovering with a dog, you can't have a weapon with you. We try to use our website and our social media, but we use it as an informational thing. So we try to put a lot of training tips, we try to put a lot of training resources. So we really use our website and our social media as a training asset for people to check out. It's a conservation tool, and that's what we really want to drive home.
Tree stands and elevated platforms give you a better vantage point when you're hunting, and they keep your scent off the ground. But statistics show that between a third and a half of all hunters who use tree stands will fall out of one at some point in their hunting career. Most accidents occur when climbing into or out of a stand, So here's some advice for hunting safely from an elevated stand. Make sure your stand and ladder or other climbing device are securely installed. Never climb with your bow, crossbow, or firearm in hand. Hang it from a cord attached to your stand and pull it up once you're settled in. Wear a full body harness and use a safety rope when climbing into or out of your stand. When you climb, maintain 3 points of contact as you go up or down the ladder. When you get into your stand, make sure your safety rope is secure to prevent you from falling. Once you're seated in your stand, carefully pull your bow or firearm up by its cord. Detach the cord and drop it out of the way. Then load your weapon and you're ready to hunt. When you're ready to climb down, unload your weapon, attach it to the cord and lower it so it's out of your way. Carefully climb down, maintaining 3 points of contact as you go. Keep the safety rope attached to your harness until you reach the ground. Follow these steps and you should have a safe hunt from your tree stand. Last year, Governor Walker tasked the Department of Administration with hiring Dr. James Kroll as deer trustee. Dr. Kroll and his assistants, Dr. David Gwynn and Dr. Gary Alt, submitted their report, and now Eric Loebner is coordinating the implementation of this trustee report for the DNR. Eric, we've heard the Deer Trustee Report has 62 recommendations for changes. What's the plan for implementing these recommendations?
Our Deer Committee within the department, which contains representation from different organizations around the state, got together and started looking at those recommendations, and ultimately what we ended up doing was sorting them into 5 different categories. Those 5 categories, 4 of them basically became the basis for our action team public involvement process. So starting in March then of 2013, we ended up bringing together, inviting members of the public, whether they were individuals representing themselves or representing conservation groups around the state. And we brought them into basically 7 different meetings that we held in Stevens Point to basically help us sort through all of these recommendations and really get to the meat of what does it mean for Wisconsin, what does it mean for Wisconsin hunters, and really what do they want to see come out of this report. They did a fantastic job. They really did. They worked really hard, and ultimately they pulled together all of those recommendations and presented in July a final report that ultimately laid out their vision for what they would like to see. As a result of that, they provided us both recommendations, or both implementation proposals as they were called. We took that information and then basically sorted it down to the rule package that we have here, or we presented earlier this year. There's some relatively significant changes, to be honest with you. As you look at the season structure, historically there was a philosophy that we would offer a variety of different increasing season lengths with increasing need to decrease the herd. Well, many people have found great enjoyment in those longer seasons, and as a result of that, the action teams also proposed really longer seasons. So we really tried to maximize opportunities, yet trying to control harvest by really limiting the number of antlerless tags that are offered. So some of the things that we're looking at doing or proposing in the rule package basically is to eliminate the one-day closure, because not only did people want consistency and they wanted the simplification, they really wanted to make it easy for them. Is the season open or isn't it open? So we were eliminating the one-day closure of the archery season. We basically left the youth hunt, the disabled hunt, and the 9-day gun deer season the same. We are proposing to change the muzzleloader season because we are also eliminating the December hunt, but we did add those 4 days into the muzzleloader season, so that will provide additional opportunity for muzzleloader hunters. In addition to that, a season that has been extremely popular within the CWD management zone, or has been growing in popularity, is what's called the holiday hunt. Currently offered in the CWD management zone. That's something that we're looking at offering in a larger part of the state. And this is another area where the public will have the opportunity to really pick and choose between what was defined as the farmland area or the area of the state that's south of Highway 64. And that's the area of the state where the holiday hunt would occur. Other changes that we're looking at, really trying to adjust the deer management units. We have provided 2 options to the public through the hearing process. Basically, it would align our deer management units with county boundaries, so there would be 72. So currently we have 134 deer management units. This would consolidate it down to 72. The other option was looking at existing DMU boundaries. and ultimately use those boundaries to consolidate it down to 53. In addition to that, we really want to make the local input the basis for a lot of our discussions on deer and deer numbers. So a big part of the program is talking about the development of county-based deer management advisory committees. Those committees will be made up of representations from the Conservation Congress. Ultimately, though, the representative from the Congress will be the one responsible for pulling these meetings together, getting membership on their advisory committee. And then lastly, the other big change that is proposed in the package is the development of the Deer Management Assistance Program.
What's the time frame for all this?
Our goal then is to take this rule package, now that we've had the hearings, we'll ultimately take the information that we heard at those hearings, redevelop it, relay it out potentially differently, and then ultimately take that to our Natural Resources Board in December for final approval, with the goal then of implementation in the 2014 deer season.
Experts tell us that healthy habitat equals healthy deer. And during a long, severe winter, we can lose some deer to starvation. For the most part, that happens in places where there are too many deer for the available habitat. Last month, I met DNR forester Scott Fisher at the Bowler Ranger Station. It was his last week on the job after a 30-year career, and he was happy to show me and landowner Jim Weinman how to read the impact of deer on Jim's property in southwestern Shawano County. So Jim, when did you purchase this land?
I've been hunting out here for about 10 years, and I bought it a year ago, actually about 14 months ago.
And you bought it as a hunting property?
Yeah. My best hunting partner and I have been hunting out here for right around 10 years. There's a family connection. And so I've seen it. I've seen the development of the property. And so roughly over the last 8 years, the adjacent properties have been transformed from essentially public land into very tightly managed, manicured properties where guys are managing the land for deer.
What kind of changes have you seen in the land and in the wildlife?
Well, when we first started hunting out here, we would see, on any given day, we might see 0 deer, we might see 2, we might see 5. A good day would be if we saw 5 or 6 deer, and that would be, like during the rutting season, when you're expecting a lot of deer activity. And then when the adjacent property went from public to private, we noticed each successive year, more deer and more deer and more deer. And right now, on any given night, we can see 20 to 30 deer.
And what kind of impact have you seen on the property then?
This area had been logged about 8 or 10 years ago. And I've been wondering why there hasn't been, second growth or, an understory coming up. And I thought maybe it was because the canopy was too dense and there wasn't enough light getting through. But I've kind of, in the back of my mind, that was a hope, and that it wasn't deer damage going on. And after I, talked with the DNR forester, it became very clear to me that the reason that there are no new trees regenerating is because the deer are browsing everything down and they don't have a chance to grow.
Well, Scott, is that what's happening here? This looks almost park-like. It's open land. You can see almost 100 yards in the forest.
Like you said, this has been cut. We're standing right next to a great big oak stump right here. Mm-hmm. There's full sunlight coming in from above us. There should be tree seedlings here, and there aren't.
So what can Jim do here?
Well, that's a good question. I have a lot of landowners like Jim that their primary purpose of owning the land is for hunting. And they recognize the things the deer hold near and dear is food and cover, and they want more of both. But and generally, forest management is very compatible with managing for deer habitat. We generally have tools where we can start new trees, have more food, more cover. But when the deer are at the number we are right now, it's very difficult to bring any tree seedlings up through. I mean, they're browsing them off as soon as they start to grow. And so we almost have to go to extreme measures of doing deer exclusion fencing to try to get new seedlings to grow.
Now, what have you done here? You say you just learned about the deer impact, but what have you done to this point?
Well, right now, I guess the only thing that we've been trying to do over the last probably 5 years, we started noticing when we noticed the deer population coming up, we started trying to take more does. And I had, in fact, I had a conversation with my adjacent neighbor just earlier this spring, and whereas the property I have is 80 acres and they're controlling 400 or more acres, we killed the same number of does on our property as they did on the adjacent property. And based on the damage we've already got here, if that continues, it's going to get worse. And so what I guess the best thing that I can try and do is educate myself and try and educate my neighbors so that we're the best stewards of the land that we can be.
Well, can we take a closer look at some of this damage?
This is a ash seedling that I got from Jim's property here. And as far as age, this is about 17 years old.
Really?
Yep.
And you cut it off at the base?
I cut it off at ground level, and you can see every one of these crooks here was at a point where a deer had nipped off the top of it and caused it to take a separate, forking mechanism. One of the seedlings like this that I looked at had been browsed, the woody part of it had been browsed 56 times. One seedling, 56 browse points. And if you look at this, there's almost no leaves that are intact. Every leaf has been partially eaten off.
It's October, it's the first part of October, and it's already been eaten.
Right, yeah, and that's, I guess, maybe a little misconception too about deer browse, is that it's a winter type thing. They actually do more damage to the tree seedlings in the summer because the tree is trying to grow and put its nutrients into its system through its leaves. And if its leaves continuously get chewed off, it just is, the tree is starving to death. It doesn't get enough energy to keep on going. And then with chewing it off, it generally succumbs. And here on this raspberry plant, they've got just about every leaf chewed off of it. To the untrained eye, you look out there and it's still green, you still see sedge and some balsam fir. But if you look a little closer, think a little closer, those are all things that are pretty low on a deer's preference. They won't eat those unless they're really desperate. It's hard for Jim to know what his land should look like because it's always looked like this since he's hunted it. It's for 10 years, it's looked like this. And we'll look at another property that is closer to the Menominee Reservation where the deer numbers are much lower, and it'll be good to see the viewers can see kind of what a forester expects this property to look like.
Well, this is remarkably different from the first property that we looked at from Jim's place.
Isn't it, Dan? This is the same type of soil. The deer numbers are much lower here, and you just see this is what I would expect to see.
I hear a grouse. So there's other wildlife here as well.
That's right. There's structure here. There's feed. There's cover. This is what a natural forest should look like. Here as a forester, you can see this is what would have sustainable forestry. We can grow trees back. We've got all the species we want: sugar maple, hickory, ash, basswood. It's a healthy environment.
So if Jim's forest had fewer deer, he would have the habitat like this, like what we see here.
That's the key ingredient that's different, is the deer numbers. Wow. The potential is there.
Now, how many years would this last if the deer population were to increase here?
Well, whatever's above their reach now will continue to grow, much like Jim's woods. He's got a fully stocked forest, and that forest is fine as it is. But when you want to try recruiting new seedlings, there's a pretty big carrying capacity here. There's a lot of browse. It would take a lot of deer quite a bit of time to push this back to the situation that Jim has.
So bottom line, what's the message for landowners who want balanced habitat and wildlife?
Well, I think that they can be compatible. And my hope is that they can maybe take a little closer look at their own land, maybe put up an exclusion fence to see what the difference would be if deer aren't browsing their property. hopefully they can contrast what this looks like to what Jim's property looks like. It just maybe means carrying a lower number of deer, and it's going to take work from their neighbors as well, cooperation.
Well, now that you know what good deer habitat looks like, let's learn about a new effort to help landowners manage their forest lands for deer and other wildlife. Bob Knack is the Big Game Section Chief and the leader of the new Deer Management Assistance Program. We've heard a lot of talk about the Deer Management Assistance Program, or DMAP. It's one of the key recommendations of the Deer Trustee Report, but what exactly is it and how will it work?
Well, the Deer Management Assistance Program, or DMAP, is still in its relative infancy in the state here, but essentially it's going to be a private landowner program for landowners that are interested in managing their property for wildlife with a specific emphasis on deer. The public action team through the DTR process provided us a great framework for the program to begin with. We're going to set 3 stages that landowners can choose to participate in. We'll be meeting with landowners and establishing realistic goals for their property and making habitat recommendations, also deer harvest recommendations for them as well.
And what's the landowner's responsibility in all this?
We're going to ask them to help us collect some biological data, including harvest data as well, and implementing habitat management practices on their property. We can provide technical assistance over the phone. We'll also, at the higher levels, we'll have foresters and wildlife biologists working together, do site visits, and provide habitat recommendations at that point.
Will there be coordinators around the state, or will you be the point person, the only person involved?
As we develop the program, I am the coordinator for the state right now. I would anticipate, depending on the popularity of the program and success of the program, that we will be adding additional staff to implement the program as well.
Well, how does DMAP differ from the managed forest program where you have to allow people to hunt if you have enough land?
This program is going to focus on wildlife components of a management plan, and there's not going to be a requirement to allow public access to the property.
What are you hearing from hunters and landowners? Are they interested?
I have received a number of phone calls from landowners that are interested as deer hunters, but also as responsible landowners and forest managers of their properties.
Do you think it'll be a big program in Wisconsin?
I sure hope it will, and that's my plan. Really want to focus on proper forest management with an emphasis on deer, but recognize that all wildlife will benefit from habitat management practices that we do for deer. The program is really focused on improving relationships between the department, our hunters, and landowners. We'll work with landowners of any size. However, we do encourage cooperative relationships among landowners to increase the amount of available habitat that we can work on in that area.
So where do we go from here? When does this really get started?
Well, I'll be working within the next 8 months to contact stakeholders and conservation organizations that are interested in DMAP. They're going to help us form and develop this program. We'll be putting together an advisory committee to, again, help us shape the future of DMAP here in Wisconsin. There's going to be a website developed. Keyword will be DMAP, and I encourage people that are interested in the program to check that out.
Dan Storm is in charge of deer research for the DNR. Dan, tell us about your studies.
The DNR, in partnership with the University of Wisconsin-Madison and really legions of volunteers and landowners, has been working on a large-scale deer mortality study. So since 2011, we've collared over 700 deer. And what we can do with these collared deer is we can determine what percentage of the deer die in a given year, and usually we can tell what the causes were. We've had over 1,000 volunteers help out, and that involves coming out in the winter, catching deer with us, and it involves also helping search for fawns in the springtime. It's a lot of fun, and they get a chance to put their hands on a fawn, and it's really cool for people. They love it, and we couldn't have done this sort of research without them.
Why did the DNR conduct these studies?
Well, primarily with the bucks, it's about that harvest rate. It's about improving our population estimation, and there's been a lot of interest among the public about the impacts that predation may have on deer populations, and so that's why we ended up doing those fawn mortality studies. We have a northern forest study area that's near the town of Winter, and then we have an eastern farmland study that's near the town of Shackton. So these study areas are very different. We've got the big woods, we've got fairly low road densities, low hunter densities, and we've got the full complement of predators. We've got wolves, black bears, bobcats, coyotes, and harsh winters. And in the eastern study area, it's sort of a different scenario. We've got more roads, a lot more hunters, and the predator community is different as well. So it provides us this really nice contrast to see how mortality varies across the state.
How do the results compare in these two areas?
With respect to fawns, in the northern study area, it's really variable year to year, and a lot of that depends on winter severity. So after a harsh winter, fawn survival tends to be lower. And in the east, the fawn survival wasn't as variable year to year. Also, the causes tend to vary quite a bit with the fawns. With the fawns in the north, we're seeing, a fair amount of bear predation and bobcats and coyotes, sort of the full mix. In the east, in terms of predation, the only real player there was coyotes. But actually, the more common cause of mortality in the east was starvation. And what that means is some of their mothers haven't had the enough nutrition to really to provide for them, to give them the milk they need. So, and what happens then in those cases, those fawns end up starving.
What did you find was the biggest cause of death among adult bucks?
Well, with adult bucks, it's far and away hunter-harvest. In the eastern study area, there is some roadkill. Didn't find that too much in the northern study area. And in the northern study area, we did find some predation as well. And it's mostly happening with those younger bucks. A lot of the bucks we're collaring in the winter, they're the button bucks, right? So they're experiencing their first winter. Those bucks are more vulnerable to starvation, to predation than fully grown animals are, and especially during a harsh winter. Oftentimes on a predated animal, an animal that's obviously been eaten, what we'll find when we look at the carcass, if we break open a leg bone, we can see the bone marrow. And we see that sometimes, a lot of the times with these animals that have been eaten by predators in that winter, springtime, that the bone marrow has lost its fat. And that means that deer was in really rough shape and was likely really predisposed to predation.
The fawn study has concluded, right?
That's correct. We just had our last summer of fawn capture, our third and final year. And this coming winter, we have our fourth and final year of adult capture.
When will you have the results of both studies?
Well, the final results are going to come in. They're more than a year away, because we're going to be catching deer this winter, and then we're going to go through that next monitored deer for survival through the following the 2014 hunting season. So at that point, then we'll have all the data we're going to get from that study, and we'll have our final reports put together.
Well, Dan, will there be more opportunities to volunteer?
Absolutely. This winter we're going to be catching more deer in both the northern forest and the eastern farmland study areas. If anyone's interested, they can go to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources website and type in deer research.
Here's some gear you might want to consider taking in the field with you this season. A headlamp to help you find your stand in the morning, and also to help drag a deer out at night in case you get one late in the day. Speaking of dragging a deer, this clam pulling harness will let you drag a deer out of the woods all by yourself. You can also use it to tow your sled if you're ice fishing later in the season. A warm weather hat and a cold weather hat in case the weather changes on you. And of course, in cold weather, you'll want warm undergarments like this merino wool base layer outfit. I really like the wool, it's very comfortable. And if it's very cold, you'll need a pair of boots, warm boots like these Sub-Zero boots. And around camp, it's really handy to have a Zippo 4-in-1 woodsman tool. You can pound or pull stakes with it, chop wood, and even saw wood with it. Speaking of sawing, how about a wicked pole saw? This saw extends up to 12 feet. You can cut limbs around your stand or clear shooting lanes, of course, only on private land. And here's a smaller version, also by Wicked, a tree saw. And this folds up and you can carry it with you in a sheath. Real Avid makes a Revelation lighted knife to help you field dress a deer in low light conditions, and a Visser, a 3-in-1 tool. You can field dress a deer, and you can also cut the brisket with it. Real handy to have. Now here are a couple of lightweight ground blinds you can set up or take down in just seconds. This ghost blind has reflective panels that blend in with just about any cover, and it comes in 2 sizes. And this netting by DC Camo Nets will hide you and or your ATV if you like. You can see through it, but the deer can't see you. Crossbows are legal again this year during the gun season when anyone may use them. And they're also legal to use during the archery season if you're over 65 or have the appropriate permit. This is a 10-point crossbow with a Hawk Optic scope, and with an outfit like this, most hunters should be able to kill a deer cleanly at 30 yards. It looks like Wisconsin will have a separate crossbow season in 2014 to run concurrently with the archery season. Again this year, we've recorded portions of this show on the grounds of Milford Hills Hunt Club near Johnson Creek, Wisconsin. A big thank you goes out to the staff of Milford Hills for their support and cooperation. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Dan.
Mark LaBarbera is the founder of the Outdoor Heritage Education Center, and Mark was on the show the last couple of years. In fact, 2 years ago, Mark and his daughter Rachel were on the show talking about deer camp. Now, Mark, it's certainly good to be back at camp, isn't it?
It sure is. You know, there's something about this time of year and the smells in the air. It just makes you feel alive.
Absolutely. Now, not everybody has a permanent deer camp like your family does, but if you don't, something like this custom cottage with the adder room really is a deer camp you can take anywhere. Sets up in a few minutes and you got instant deer camp.
I like that. It would work on public land too, wherever you can camp with a tent.
Sure, and we've got, what, 8 million acres of public land here in Wisconsin? And you know, some residents don't appreciate the treasure we have, but you and I both know some non-residents who are more than happy to buy a license every year.
I was one of them. I spent 20-some years as a non-resident. I didn't think twice about spending the money to come back and share the tradition. It's part of our heritage, part of our history, and families getting together, I mean, that's priceless.
Now, speaking of families and non-residents, you know a family of folks from Minnesota and Wisconsin, and they get together here in Wisconsin to hunt every year. Tell us about them.
Well, this grandpa, son, and grandson got together in camp, and when you see what they're talking about and you hear them, you see that sense of satisfaction or something powerful in their look and in the way they speak about it.
My name is Jason Saver. This is my father, Dan, and this is my son, Jacob. We, all three of us, were three-generation hunters and outdoorsmen. I guess one of my most fond memories was the first year I ever did take my son, Jacob, out hunting. The Wisconsin Youth Hunt was phenomenal for him to be at the age of 10, to be out there in the woods and enjoy it and understand why I love it so much, and why my father, Dan, here, he's brought it down to me.
I was 11, and there's this youth hunt in Wisconsin, and I had a football game earlier that day and I lost, and we came out up to the cabin, and I sat in stand the first night, Saturday night, and we didn't see anything, and then we sat Sunday morning and we didn't see anything, and then Sunday night we were in stand, and a little doe came in, and then the other one came in, and then the big one came in and walked right to the corn, and I just put my crosshairs on it and I shot, and it ran 20 yards and then dropped. It was exciting.
You were excited.
Yeah, you hit that deer good. That deer, it was nice. Your heart, if you could listen closely, it was pounding through that chest because you were shaking, and it was giggly, and we actually saw that the deer go down, and we waited still to make sure that the deer was good, was dead, and yeah, we went and got it, and that was a great feeling, wasn't it, Jake? Yeah, I truly have to thank my father for bringing us up with a cabin in the state of Wisconsin. Knowing that, you know, if I would have known when I was younger what it meant to me, what it does now, I would have got it. And just remember all the times when I was young and going up there and fishing and water skiing and jumping off the tire swing into the water and meeting new friends up there. And still to this day I'm friends with people that I've met up there. And now myself, I have a cabin in Wisconsin and I'm bringing it to my kids, and it just, I'm truly lucky that I got a piece of that when I was a kid.
Building good memories, right?
Right, because
building memories all the time.
Well, now it's time for the segment you hunters have been waiting for, our annual hunting forecast. Kevin Wallenfang is the DNR's big game ecologist. And Kevin, why don't we start by talking about last winter's impact on the deer herd?
That's a good place to start, Dan, because it really had an effect on how we set the season up this year, and especially on permit issuance. As you'll recall, we had a late spring. The snows came late, and they kept right on coming. You might have been up north about the same time I was turkey hunting in 2 feet of snow this year. It wasn't very fun, but the deer were struggling through that a little bit. We did see some losses of deer this year, probably in places that people wouldn't normally expect them. In farmland regions, because the snows were deep, they couldn't get down to last year's acorns and waste grains. So we did lose some deer, but the good news is that people in the north, quite a few people that I've talked to said that they are seeing a few more deer than they expected to, and in the past couple of years. So we've got high hopes that things are getting a little bit better up in the north. Overall, we've really got a tale of two states again, like very similar to last year. So let's start with the northern part of the state. What we did this year is we have permit levels that are actually the lowest they've been for antlerless deer since the late 1990s. We've got low permit levels, but the public seems to be pretty happy with that. But at the same time, they do want to see some permits out there, give some people an opportunity to shoot a doe. It makes the rules simpler. It gives a few extra guys an opportunity to put some deer in the freezer, and that's what deer hunting is all about.
I understand there's some buck-only units?
There are a few this year. We've got 4 units that, by the way, have been buck-only units for the past 5 years, 5 years in a row now. The populations in those units are just not quite rebounding to where we would like them to be. We probably could have had several more units that could have been buck-only this year, but again, that public input process, turn that around. We've got a lot of units out there with, a quota of 100 or 200 deer. We can put a few tags out there and still see herd growth, and that's what people would like to see. The low deer numbers in the north, or perhaps that slow rebounding of population levels, there's not one reason for that. There's always multiple reasons, and habitat in the north is a big part of what's going on right now. We've got a maturing forest in the north, and it just does not support deer like it did 20, 30 years ago. Now we're seeing some changes in where people are logging, where the companies are logging, where the state is logging, the national forest. They're starting to do more logging again now. Down the road, we would expect to see improvements in broader ranges of habitat. So that's going to help. But there are situations that you can't deny when a population gets very low and you don't have the habitat there to support it. The big predators can have an impact. But if you've got good habitat, they always have. Our deer have always rebounded from bad situations and whatnot. If the habitat is there, the wolves, the bobcats, whatever, they're not going to suppress that. So we need to see some improvements in our habitat in the north.
Well, let's talk about the farmland region then.
We never worry too much about the farmland region. We've got extremely productive farmlands in Wisconsin. Our corn and soybeans and whatnot, they support a lot of deer. We are hearing that this summer. In fact, I've talked to quite a few guys that have been bow hunting now this fall, and quite frankly, they've been astonished at the number of some of the deer they've seen. But you got to qualify that kind of a statement, because deer are not spread out equally across the landscape. And one guy on a piece of property that's seeing lots and lots of deer, his neighbor might not be seeing hardly any. And that's the challenge of deer management. It's the challenge of being a hunter, is finding those honey holes and trying to get onto them and finding a good place to hunt.
You mentioned bow hunters. Now, bow hunters took a record number of bucks last year, didn't they?
They did indeed. Our bow hunters last year, for the first time ever, shot over 45,000 bucks in the state. I won't be surprised if they do that again this year, based on what we're hearing, and hopefully a few more deer out there. And the other part of that equation too is our trophy bucks. It's really astonishing, the number of trophy bucks that Wisconsin continues to put out. Already this year, we've heard of a potential new state record, non-typical in the state, and several Boone and Crockett bucks already shot by the bow hunters this year. So wrapping up, hopefully to be another really good season.
Good. There are a couple new rules, aren't there?
There are a few. The biggest one of these that's probably going to impact the most people is the statewide use of rifles. There was a rule change that went into effect starting November 1st, and guys can use rifles statewide this year. I would encourage them, though, to check locally, because there could be some local ordinances that still require them to use a shotgun or a lesser weapon during the season. But they should be able to use rifles. And then the other big one that goes into full effect this year is that the state parks will be open during the gun deer season. Again, they should check and make sure the rules of each park. I believe there are a couple of them out there that are not open, but state park, that old refuge next door where the deer used to hang up, guys can access some of that now.
Well, any thoughts about how many deer we might harvest on opening weekend?
Well, I wouldn't stick my neck out quite that far to make any kind of a prediction, but the deer should be out there in much of the state. People in the northern part of the state, in the forested regions, they may still have a little tougher time than they're used to seeing deer. We've got the latest gun opener that's possible on the calendar. So what we would likely expect to see from that is a little bit of reduced rutting activity. Deer might not be moving as well as they normally would. And then you've always got the Packer factor in here. The Packers play the Vikings on Sunday at noon on opening weekend, and that's going to pull people from the woods, and they play again, I believe, on Thanksgiving Day. So guys can laugh about that, but you know, that's part of the deer camp for a lot of guys too. And whatever it takes to have fun in deer camp, if the Packers are part of it, so be it. So, but we expect a good season. We hope a little bit better harvest than we saw last year. I'd really like to see a little better harvest in the north, kind of keep those old deer camps alive and people happy up there. So hopefully it's going to be a really good season.
I hope so. Once again this year, it's our pleasure to have DNR Secretary Kathy Stepp on the show with us. And Kathy, welcome to the show again.
Thanks for having me back.
Now, I don't know if you've seen this. This is the Safari Club Wisconsin chapter's Hunters Magazine.
Okay.
But there you are.
Hey!
With your first buck.
And can I just say that's the most beautiful buck I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure you agree.
He's pretty good looking,
Yes.
I'll tell you. But tell us about that hunt.
I only had about a half hour of daylight left. I get one day to hunt. That's it with my schedule, so I got to make it or break it. And out into the clearing came a doe at first, and I got pretty excited with the adrenaline rush. And I thought, oh man, I got a doe last year. Not that I'm being picky, you know, and I don't mean to brag that I would actually be 2 for 2 after this successful hunt. But anyway, shortly thereafter, out he came from the clearing, and he just kind of looked both ways and came sauntering out very carefully. And I lined up the shot and wanted to make sure I didn't do a repeat scope eye episode, as you remember from last year. So I lined it up just right. And just the adrenaline rush, the electricity, that pounding in your chest of your heart, there's nothing like it. Just took a deep breath, squeeze the trigger, and down he went. And the most beautiful buck, honestly, that I've ever seen, not that I've seen a lot of bucks up close and personal, but in my opinion, I think by far he's the most beautiful, and I'll challenge all of your viewers.
And last year, you were a first-time hunter.
That's right. I've really been missing it all those years, not having gone, and I want to make sure other people don't miss that same experience. And especially, we're trying to focus on women and youth, and we've had some really great successful numbers come out just last year. We've had an increase in women and first-time hunters and youth as well. So this year, we're continuing to try to encourage first-timers. We've got a $5 first-time license fee, or $5 for the fee if you haven't been out in about 10 years. You can come back into the sport again, and we want to make sure we're keeping hunting fun and safe, and just continuing those traditions.
And Kathy, 30% of those first-time hunters last year were women, I understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, and really I take that responsibility as being the first DNR secretary that's a woman very seriously, because if I've got the opportunity to get women engaged in hunting, you know what happens when the women come along is the kids follow, and really continues that family tradition. And everybody knows it takes a hunter to make a hunter, and I'm very thankful for my guide and mentor. And if I can end up being a guide and mentor to somebody, maybe with a little more experience under my belt, I'm looking forward to being able to do that one day too. So I encourage everybody to take somebody out for their first time and get engaged with them so we can continue the great sport. We're really trying to engage with our hunting community out there, and to give the accolades to folks, especially kids who really love this idea, is where you can give them a congratulations certificate that's signed by me and Kevin Wallenfang, who's our big deer guy. And it's got the picture that'll be featured on there that's taken at the site, you know, when the harvest happens, particulars about where it was that the deer was harvested, and just kind of a cool memento, again, to engage folks. And man, we've had so many positive comments about that, about just a wonderful partnership to see the DNR thanking hunters for being our partners.
Why is connecting with other hunters so important to you?
Well, you know, Dan, I mean, hunters are our partners in conservation. We could never do all the things that we would like to do in deer management with just DNR. This is your DNR. We need to be partners together, and we've got a lot of exciting things that are going on in deer management, from season management structure, the Deer Trustee Report. We've had lots of online chats and thousands of people filling out our online survey on what they want to see in deer management in Wisconsin. We've got to bring our partners into these discussions now, and not just hear people, but actually do active listening and even implementing many of the public's great ideas.
Well, Kathy, do you have any final message for hunters as they get ready for this season?
Oh yeah, first thing I would just want to say is thank you to everybody who has participated and weighed in with your ideas and solutions. We love to hear your stories. We look forward to hearing more of your stories now on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. We've got lots of things you need to check out there. And again, just like you all had to hear my story, I'm certainly excited to hear about yours. And last and most important note is to have a safe and fun season.
In the past hour, we've heard some great hunting stories, and maybe you've got a story you'd like to share. The DNR wants to connect with hunters and help hunters connect with each other. You can connect with your DNR through the social media. Share your photos on the DNR Facebook page, pin venison recipes on Pinterest, and chat with DNR experts online. You can even do a virtual ride-along with a warden by following your DNR on Twitter during the season. Visit dnr.wi.gov and search the keywords Deer Show for details. New this year is a DNR mobile app for deer hunters, and this is really cool. Features include GPS mapping of your favorite hunting spots, a way to find a place to hunt on public land, season regulations at your fingertips, and a trophy case for sharing your photos instantly with a community of hunters. It's a free download from iTunes and Google Play. Keep your eyes on dnr.wi.gov for details and get the app for this season. And if you've got video of your deer hunts you think others would like to see, visit our Deer Hunt Wisconsin YouTube page for details. If we like your video, we'll be in touch and you might be featured on next year's show, so keep that camera at the ready. I'm Dan Small. Have a safe and successful season, and join us again next November for another episode of Deer Hunt Wisconsin. All right, here we go one more time.
It's right there. Yes, that's the right camera.
Face on there for the adversity. I'm not sure how to do that. Compassion. Give me those hazel eyes.
Deet.
Life is hard. Life is so hard.